Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about my picks for my favorite Easter and spring horror films. So first and foremost, I just wanted to say I apologize for it taking a while to cover both of these topics. I had pushed off the spring one just because I had a lot of other video ideas that I needed to do in March. And then when it comes to the Easter one, it became apparent very quickly that I had really not seen any Easter horror movies before. So I definitely had to remedy that before I could talk about any Easter horror films in a video. And I did decide to combine them because I ended up only watching one movie that actually does fit that Easter part of this video. But I do have quite a few different spring ones that I want to add onto this list as well. So first off, we will go ahead and cover the Easter one, and that is Critters 2, the main course. So I actually had to watch the original in order to do this one as well because I hadn't seen that one before either. I thought about just skipping straight to the second one, but I just did not have it in me to do that, so I went ahead and I did watch both of them, and I'm actually really glad I did. So in Critters 2, we do follow our main character, Brad, from that original film. He has come back to town to visit a relative over Easter, and there are Kreitz eggs that have been left on Earth after the last time they had been there, and they fell into the right hands, so they got distributed throughout the town, and they have been made to look like Easter eggs, quite a few of them anyway. That way they could be used in an Easter egg hunt and just given to a bunch of children. So there's a lot of chaos that ensues from all of that. And I do kind of want to talk about both of these first two Critters movies while I can on this channel. And so the second one really is the only one that is spring related, but I just don't know when I'll get another good opportunity to talk about the first Critters. So I just want to say, first and foremost, what kind of hooked me on these right away was actually Brad's actor, Scott Grimes. And I had really not seen him in much of anything before, but when I saw the Ted TV show for the first time, I thought that he was really hilarious in that, and he's the father in that show. And I had just binge watched both seasons of that since it came out just very recently. So then when I turned on Critters and I saw him, I'm like, oh, that's so weird because I hadn't seen him, act in something when he was that young before. But I thought that he honestly did a really good job in these movies. I thought that he was a likable lead, and I'm going to have to look into, some of the other things that he has done in the past as well. But what else I really like about these first two Critters movies would be the design of the critters themselves. I think that they do look very creepy, and they have the moments where there's like some blood on them by their teeth and stuff, and they do look very creepy like that. But at the same time, they look just absolutely hilarious with all of that hair that they have. There is a scene in the second movie that there has it has like a bunch of them just running around on the ground, and it just looks like a herd of like toupees running around. It's just so hilarious to me. I love it. And I'm not typically into the horror movies that are about like small creatures, kind of like this one. But I had a lot of fun with it. I thought that it was just a really good time. There were a lot of very interesting deaths in both of those movies, and I think there were just moments that I really laughed out loud in because it was just so hilarious, seeing the critters get into all the crazy stuff that they do in them. But I think that Critters 2 is a really good Easter horror film to check out. We do have all of those Krite eggs that are decorated to look like they're Easter eggs. We do have like an Easter egg hunt situation going on, and we also have a guy dressed up as a bunny. And so I think that you are getting a lot of those Easter things that you would want in an Easter horror film. But I do want to know your thoughts on Easter horror down in the comments. Please let me know some other good ones I should check out. A lot of the other ones that I had looked at were more of like evil Easter Bunny kind of movies. And please let me know which out of those ones are actually good and worth my time, because I would like to try to find more to watch before the next Easter comes around. But now we can go ahead and start talking about some spring horror movies. And I do want to talk about a few honorable mentions really fast here in the beginning that I'm not officially including in the list just because I have talked about all of them in other videos recently. So first we have Leprechaun. That one was in my St. Patrick's Day horror video. Technically, that is a winter holiday, but it doesn't feel like that to me. It is so close to being spring. So that would be one that I would consider as well. Then April Fool's Day, I had that in my April Fool's Day horror video. And that is definitely a holiday that takes place during the spring, and the characters in it are on their spring break as well. Then a couple other ones that I wanted to recommend really quickly would be Carrie and Prom Night, just because they are centered around prom, and that is definitely an event that we have in spring in schools and stuff. But now we can get into the main spring horror films that I wanted to put on this list. And the first one of these is Midsommar. Honestly, I think this one is like the quintessential spring horror movie for me. So, in it, we do have our main character, Dani, who has just suffered a really horrible loss of her sister as well as both of her parents. On top of that, she does have a boyfriend that just does not give much of a crap about her at all, and he's just kind of staying with her because he feels like he has to, especially after everything that she just lost, and he decides kind of half-heartedly to invite her on a vacation that he's going on with a couple of his friends over to Sweden. That way they can experience a once-in-a-lifetime midsummer festival. And it becomes very apparent very quickly that the people that they are staying with are actually in a violent pagan cult. So this one, I think, really is the perfect spring horror movie because of a lot of different factors. Mainly, though, it would be the setting. It is just a very gorgeous setting. It's very green, very lush, and most of the scenes in this film take place in the daytime. And something that I personally associate with spring is just how bright it is. I feel like I usually end up getting sunburnt a lot worse in the early spring than I do in the summertime. And I just think that this movie is just overwhelmingly bright. And that's probably just because, most horror movies are set in darker settings than that. But that's a contributing factor for me for sure. And you can also think about the iconic image toward the end of the film where Dani is just covered in tons and tons of flowers. And, even if you haven't seen the movie, you've probably seen the still of her with all those flowers on her. And I think that those are just the biggest reasons that this one just screams spring to me. Now, the next one that I want to talk about is The Wicker Man. So, The Wicker Man is about a devout Christian policeman who has traveled to a remote island in Scotland because he is trying to locate a missing girl that he was told about. And his beliefs are definitely challenged by the people that live on this island because they are all pagans as well. And this one, it doesn't really scream spring to me, but it does technically take place in the spring as well. And this one has a lot of the same types of things going on as Midsommar does, and that is probably, something that makes a lot of sense with the fact that it seems to be that The Wicker Man was the one that was really the inspiration for Midsommar and stuff. But I think that this one is a good spring horror film to check out. It was one that I wasn't sure if I was going to end up liking. I think sometimes I just miss the time frame on a lot of the older classic horror movies like this one. But actually, this one worked very well for me. I hadn't really fully realized how much I liked folk horror until probably a while after I saw this one. But I was just really starting to get into it. There's just something very creepy about movies like that, in my opinion. I think it's just, a different way of life and one that's a little bit scary when you have the sacrifices going on and stuff like that. But I really like this one, and I definitely recommend checking it out. Now, the next one that I want to talk about is Men. So, Men is about a woman named Harper who has recently become a widow, and she is trying to just get past that personal tragedy. And so she decides that she is going to take a little bit of a vacation out to more of like the countryside of England. And in this town, she meets various men that all kind of look very similar and act very similar as well. And I think that this one is very polarizing. People are either going to love it or they're going to hate it. It's very strange, that's for sure. And I think that the biggest reason for it being so polarizing is definitely the ending. If you have seen it, you probably know, because it is just one of the most insane horror movie endings I've ever seen in my life. But I think this one actually works really well for me. I think it just has this very tense feel to it. I feel that way about The Wicker Man as well. But I think that this one is just very creepy. And I mean, I am a woman, so I don't know if that puts it into a little bit of a different perspective for me than some of the male audience members and stuff. But I think that this one works very well for a spring horror movie for me, just for the sense that it has this absolutely gorgeous setting, very similar to Midsummer, but this one is like the most green horror movie that I can think of. It just looks absolutely stunning. All of the shots of the nature that she is around in this one. I think that that was just the thing that drew me in when I watched this movie for the first time. It was just so stunningly gorgeous, the shots and stuff that they get in it. And it just really does have that green aspect that I think of in spring. Now, the last one that I want to talk about is Jeepers Creepers. So this one is definitely way different from the other ones that I've talked about for the spring horror movies in this video. But in this one, we do have our main characters who are a brother and sister, and they are going back home for their spring break from college, and they end up having an altercation with this big truck on the road. And a little while later, they end up seeing that vehicle pulled over in a different area, and it seems like the driver is dumping what looks like bodies down this chute. So it ends up that that driver happens to see them, and he does go after them, but they do get an opportunity away from him. That way they can kind of try to look into that pipe and see what it is that he was actually putting down there. And I think that, in this movie, they really realized that they should not have gotten in anyone else's business. And because of that, he keeps his eye on them for the rest of the film. Now, this one is one that I wanted to put on here just because of it being a spring break horror movie. And it doesn't really feel super spring to me. I don't know, it kind of feels almost a little more summer, but technically it is in that spring break time period. And there could also be a lot of other movies you could put in here that are just about spring break as well. But I do have a lot of nostalgia for this one, and I haven't really gotten to talk about it on my channel yet, so I wanted to include it in here as well. I do obviously have to talk about the fact that Victor Salva is a piece of garbage, and I don't promote him in any way with this movie or anything like that. And I totally understand if there are people that no longer watch this movie after knowing all of the stuff about him, or ones that have never seen the movie before and won't ever see it because of all that as well. But I do still watch the movie because I do have that nostalgia for it. But I want to know what you guys think down in the comments. Did you agree with my choices for Easter and spring horror films, or would you have put some other ones on here instead? Let me know all of that down below. And like I said, let me know about specifically any Easter horror films that you think I should check out. Let me know some spring ones as well that I didn't put on here. There were quite a few that I saw listed when I was looking up stuff about this video, and there were some that did look intriguing. I just felt like I had enough of ones that I had already seen, so I didn't feel like I needed to watch anything new right then in order to get this video done in time and stuff. But let me know all those recommendations as well. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it and consider subscribing if you haven't yet for more horror content. I do post 2 new videos each week. You can follow me on Instagram for updates on my channel as well as additional horror content. You can also follow me on Letterboxd to see what I have been watching lately and my brief thoughts on any of those films. If you would like either of those, they are linked in my channel description for easy access for you guys. I want to say thank you to everyone who has been supporting my channel so far. It doesn't go unnoticed. My name is Devin. This is Carpenter Hill. Thanks for watching.